The court's order on Pegasus still falls short. Far too many cases have been diluted with the appointment of external panels, in turn compromising civil liberties. On October 27, the Supreme Court of India appointed an independent committee to inquire into charges that the Union government had used the mobile phone spyware Pegasus to invade, access, and snoop into devices used by India's citizens. The court's direction has been met with adulation. But the time to sing our paeans is not yet here. Much as the court's declarations of law brim with brio, its order still falls short of delivering justice. No guarantee still. Faced with the government's resolute refusal to file a proper affidavit, either confirming or denying the use of Pegasus, the court, one might have thought, would have issued a writ compelling the state to adduce evidence. Instead, it left the fact-finding to a committee of experts. There is no guarantee that a government that chose to remain silent before the court will now somehow come clean before an external panel. The question then is this: should the government fail to cooperate, how must the court respond? The petitioners before the Supreme Court relied on an investigation conducted by a consortium of global media. These reports revealed that hundreds of phone numbers from India had appeared on a global list of more than 50,000 numbers that were selected for surveillance by clients of the Israeli firm, the NSO Group. The NSO has since confirmed that its spyware is sold only to governments, chiefly for the purposes of fighting terrorism. The petitioners said that forensic analysis had confirmed the presence of Pegasus on the devices of at least 10 Indians, including some of those before the court. Time-tested strategy. But the cases presented a set of familiar challenges. In response to the allegations made against it, the government invoked its most beloved bogey, national security. It effectively claimed that the interests of the country's safety meant that it was under no obligation to tell the court whether it in fact used the software or not. What is more, according to it, the very adoption of this argument virtually forbade the court from probing further. This is a strategy that has worked well in the past. In matters purportedly involving national security, the court has shown an extraordinary level of deference to the executive. The cases also posed another hurdle: a contest over facts. The petitioners were asserting the occurrence of illegal surveillance. The government was offering no explicit response to their claims. How then was the court to unravel the truth? Again, in recent times, the court has invariably veered towards rejecting claims made against the state on the basis that it cannot decide the veracity of a pleading without conducting a full-fledged trial, the conduct of which is beyond the bailiwick of constitutional courts. Now, to some degree, in its order appointing a committee, the court has bucked the trend of absolute deference. The court has held that there is no magic formula to the government's incantation of national security, that its power of judicial review is not denuded merely because the state asserts that the country's safety is at stake. A clear path of accountability. The order recognizes, correctly, that spying on an individual, whether by the state or by an outside agency, amounts to an infraction of privacy. This is not to suggest that all surveillance is illegal. But, as the order concludes, any limitation on a fundamental right must be proportional and based on evidence. In a democratic country governed by the rule of law, the judges hold, indiscriminate spying on individuals cannot be allowed except with sufficient statutory safeguards, by following the procedure established by law under the Constitution. In holding thus, the court has effectively recognized that an act of surveillance must be tested on 4 grounds. First, the action must be supported by legislation. Second, the state must show the court that the restriction made is aimed at a legitimate governmental end. Third, the state must demonstrate that there are no less intrusive means available to it to achieve the same objective. And finally, the state must establish that there is a rational nexus between the limitation imposed and the aims underlying the measure. The test provides a clear path to holding the government accountable. But for a coherent application of these standards, the court must arrive at a conclusion on facts. Ordinarily, in prerogative proceedings, evidence is taken on affidavit. In other words, the parties before the court present their version of the facts through a sworn, written statement. The court then appreciates the evidence to arrive at a deduction. In the cases concerning Pegasus, each of the petitioners affirmed a set of facts, claiming that mobile phones of Indian citizens, from journalists and activists to politicians, had been subject to intrusion. In response, the government refused to file anything more than what it described as a limited affidavit. Apart from a general denial of the petitioner's case, this affidavit, the court found, did not provide any clarity as to the facts of the matter at hand. For the court, the absence of a categorical denial from the government, the order holds, ought to lead to a prima facie belief, if nothing else, that there is truth in the petitioner's claims. Having held thus, one might have expected the court to frame a set of specific questions demanding answers from the state. These might have included the following: did the government purchase Pegasus? Did it use the software on the phones of Indian citizens? If so, was such use backed by law? What were the reasons for which the use was authorized? If answers to these questions were still not forthcoming, elementary principles of evidence law allow the court to draw what is known as an adverse inference. A party that fails to answer questions put to it will only risk the court drawing a conclusion of fact against it. If, on this basis, the petitioner's case is taken as true, there can be little doubt that there has been an illegitimate violation of a fundamental right. The court then can grant any number of remedies. It can make a declaration that the government was in the wrong, and it can issue a writ compelling the government to disclose all materials relevant to the purchase and use of Pegasus. It is, therefore, unclear why we need a committee at all. Surely, the court possesses the power to gather evidence on its own, to even allow, in exceptional cases, for cross-examination of important witnesses. A committee might well be necessary where the task of collecting evidence is somehow beyond the court's remit. But that is not the case here. Ultimately, in the future, the court must think more carefully about questions of proof and rules of evidence. Ad hoc committees sterling as their members might be cannot be the solution. Far too many cases are consigned to the back burner on the appointment of external panels, and, in the process, civil liberties are compromised. For now, it is encouraging that the court has kept these cases on its docket. If it finds in 8 weeks' time, when the cases are next scheduled to be listed, that the government has been delaying or obstructing the committee, it must proceed to use its prerogative powers to both provide a declaration of illegality and issue a mandatory order to the state compelling it to perform its constitutional duties. Only then will the court's various eulogies to the values of privacy have any true meaning. Sarath Parthasarathi is an advocate practicing at the Madras High Court.
As India created history by administering 100 crore vaccine doses against COVID-19, All India Radio salutes all the doctors, nurses, other frontline workers, and all those who got vaccinated and made this possible. Even though the country has achieved this feat, we caution our listeners that the battle against COVID is not yet over. We appeal to our listeners to get fully vaccinated at the earliest and also help others get vaccinated. During the festival season, please follow these 3 simple steps. Wear a face mask. Maintain 2 gaz ki duri for social distancing. Focus on hand and face hygiene. For any COVID-related information and guidance, contact national helpline numbers 011-2397-8046 and 1075. And now the news in detail. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in Glasgow last night on a 2-day visit to UK to participate in the 26th session of the Conference of Parties, COP26. Mr. Modi received a rousing welcome from Indian community when he reached at a hotel in Glasgow.
Very, very excited. So first time Modi ji come to Scotland and we are very, very excited about it. Looking forward to it.
We're very happy to
see him.
We're so excited. We saw him. Oh wow. We're overwhelmed to see him actually. It is fantastic to him, meet him, greet him.
The high-level segment of COP26 titled The World Leaders Summit is being held today and tomorrow under the presidency of the UK, partnering with Italy. The summit will be attended by heads of state, government of more than 120 countries. In Glasgow, another important event will be the launch of Global Green Grids Initiative under the vision of One Sun, One World, One Grid. Mr. Modi, along with Australian and UK Prime Ministers, will launch a new initiative for infrastructure for resilient island states. The leaders' event organized by the COP26 presidency will focus on climate change, mitigation, adaptation and building resilience and clean technology innovation. Prime Minister last attended the COP21 in Paris in 2015 when the Paris Agreement was concluded and whose implementation commences this year. At COP26, the parties will work to achieve the completion of Paris Agreement implementation guidelines, the mobilization of climate finance, actions to strengthen climate adaptation, technology development and transfer, and keeping in reach the Paris Agreement goals of limiting the rise in global temperatures. The G20 summit in Rome concluded with the leaders adopting the Rome Declaration. Briefing media in Rome, Union Minister and India's G20 Sherpa Piyush Goyal said, G20 Rome has delivered a strong message of recovery from the pandemic in terms of economy, health, employment, education, tourism, and most importantly, climate action. He said the leaders adopted the Rome Declaration and this communique gives a strong message under health section where we have agreed that COVID-19 immunization is a global public good. He said, we have agreed to strengthen the WHO to enable it to proceed with approval of COVID vaccines. Mr. Goyal said on agriculture, livelihood of the small and marginal farmers were the focus of our discussion. He said, G20 has identified sustainable and responsible consumption and production along with provision of finance and technology as critical enablers to achieving climate goals. The Sherpa said Prime Minister Narendra Modi's mantra of sustainable lifestyles finds resonance in the Rome Declaration on sustainable consumption and responsible production patterns in line with SDG, Sustainable Development Goals 12. He said, a lot of the agenda of developing countries in which India has been taking a leadership role for has been brought into the text of the Rome Declaration. Mr. Goyal said clean energy and innovation will play an important role in the years to come. He said, energy security and stability of energy markets have also been recognized by the G20 leaders. Mr. Modi also met German Chancellor Angela Merkel yesterday. Both sides extensively discussed bilateral relations and reaffirmed the commitment to maintain the close strategic partnership. The PMO said strong friendship between the two nations augurs well for the well-being of the planet. He also met President of Indonesia Joko Widodo on the sidelines of the summit. The Commission has announced bypolls for 2 seats of Rajya Sabha, one each in West Bengal and Kerala. The notification for the bypolls will be issued on the 9th of November and polling will be held on the 29th of November. The seats are vacant due to resignation of Arpita Ghosh of the Trinamool Congress and Jose K. Mani of Kerala Congress M. The Commission also announced biennial elections to the Andhra Pradesh Legislative Council and Telangana Legislative Council by the members of Legislative Assembly. 3 seats in Andhra Pradesh and 6 seats in Telangana will go to polls on the 29th of next month. Notification for the polls will be issued on the 9th of November. The Election Commission also announced a bypoll to 1 seat of Maharashtra Legislative Council. Polling for the seat will be held on the 29th of next month. Around 106 crore 18 lakh COVID vaccine doses have been administered in the country so far under the nationwide vaccination drive. The Health Ministry said more than 68 lakh doses were administered yesterday. The ministry said that a total of 12,830 new cases were reported yesterday. The recovery rate is currently at 98.20%. The nation remembered the unifier of India, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, also known as the Iron Man of India, on his 146th birth anniversary yesterday. The day is also celebrated as Rashtriya Ekta Divas or National Unity Day across the country. The President, Vice President and the Prime Minister paid homage to Sardar Patel on his birth anniversary. President Ramnath Kovind paid floral tributes to Sardar Patel as his statue at Patel Chowk in the national capital. Vice President M. Venkaiah Naidu also paid floral tributes to the Iron Man of India. On the occasion, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said, Inspired by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, India has become fully capable facing all kinds of challenges, whether external or internal.
भारत सिर्फ एक भौगोलिक इकाई नहीं है, बल्कि आदर्शों, संकल्पनाओं, सभ्यता, संस्कृति, इसके उदार मानकों से परिपूर्ण राष्ट्र है। धरती के जिस भूभाग पर हम 130 करोड़ से अधिक भारतीय रहते हैं, वो हमारी आत्मा का, हमारे सपनों का, हमारी आकांक्षाओं का अखंड हिस्सा है।
Actor Rajnikant was discharged from the hospital last night. The 70-year-old superstar was admitted on complaints of giddiness and underwent a successful carotid artery revascularization at the Kaveri Hospital in Chennai on Friday. India slumped to their second successive loss at the Super 12 stage of the ICC T20 World Cup in Dubai last night, as they were completely outclassed by New Zealand. Today, England will take on Sri Lanka and Sharjah at 7:30 p.m.